Hello Kaiju fans, welcome back to the Kaiju World Order. My name is MM, and most people know I have a pretty big Godzilla collection. I've been collecting for over 20 years, and hey, maybe I'm overcompensating for something, maybe I'm not, who knows. But I have been collecting, as I said, for over 20 years, and I've been getting a lot of figures that have been on my to-get list now for a while. And Y-MSF, ever since Godzilla has become a lot more popular, has been pumping out more figures of like obscure kaiju that we know Bandai's not going to get around to. Now, for every like Komodothorax, for example, they also do, say, a Titanosaurus. But lately they've been pumping out even more obscure kaiju. And I did a review a while back for a little Komodothorax figure I got from Y-MSF. Now, to be fair, it's technically not Y-MSF. There's 3 different companies, or I don't know how to explain it, but some of these are not actually official figures. They are made by the same man/studio, Y-MSF, but released under, say, Zero Toys or Raimundo Toys for stuff that is a bit more in the is it under Toho's IP or someone else's? Case in point, Marvel Godzilla here. I've gotten this one a while back. Simple monster, it's obviously Marvel Godzilla. But when for sale, it was called Big Green Monster. Why? Because the rights for Marvel Godzilla seem to be all over the place. So Y-MSF released this under, I believe this was Raimundo. It was either Raimundo or Zero Toys. And it's obviously just Marvel Godzilla. And now they also just finally released a little bit ago Red Ronin. And Red Ronin is another one of those Marvel Godzilla monsters that you don't hear of very often. However, he is actually one of 2 monsters that actually started coming back in the Marvel comics. Red Ronin has been featured in a handful of even modern day comic series, while other monsters like Yetrigar have also popped up once or twice. And then, of course, Godzilla himself is mutated into his super mutated form just so Marvel can keep using the character while not actually calling it Godzilla since they lost the rights afterward. So I'm starting to ramble on here, but I think you're getting the point of why I'm doing this video. This isn't so much a review, but when I got the Red Ronin, I had also gotten the GTS Godzilla, and this is an actual Y-MSF release, and it's just amazing. I've been wanting a Y-MSF, or not so much a Y-MSF, but a GTS Godzilla for a long ass time, and this pairs great with the Komodothorax. So, if you want a comparison real quick of the GTS Godzilla, then the standard Y-MSF Godzilla 98 that was painted in GTS colors, that's this, and then there's this. So yeah, you can see the difference, at least I hope so. And these are really nice figures. Again, now, these are not Bandai's, these are Y-MSF, so if you're thinking, oh, these look cool, I want to buy one, and you're used to spending maybe $25-$35 on a Bandai, you're going to be paying about $100 for one of these figures. Generally, after taxes and everything, it comes out to be about $80, so just budget it in at $100 and you'll be safe. Are they worth it? Well, it depends on how much of a serious collector you are. You gotta remember that these figures are not mass-produced. These are not made in some big factory in China or Japan or Taiwan or something. They are molded there and then just shipped back to a single dude that lives in Japan who is assembling and painting them by hand. So there's a lot of work that goes into these. These are a bit of a fusion of an art piece along with a toy. So you got your typical like Bandai vinyl rotation for the legs and the arms, and the scale is also easily Bandai, but they are expensive. And if that turns you away from them, hey, that's fine. But I've seen more than enough people going, oh, well, they cost way too damn much. And meanwhile, they're dropping like $300 on monster arts or something. So, I don't know. I guess you should just know what the fuck you're talking about. So, why am I doing this video? It wasn't so much to do a review, because I think there's enough reviews for these things, but more along the lines of a wish list. So as I said, when it comes to the Marvel Godzilla, Y-MSF has done Godzilla and now Red Ronin, and I want to talk about some of the other monsters I'm hoping we get figures for in the near future. And Marvel doesn't have as much of a lineup of monsters compared to Godzilla the series, so I'm just going to keep it out here with like a simple count of 5. And number 1 is Yetragar, and he is the giant Bigfoot of the series that Godzilla fights in the Grand Canyon. And this thing actually makes a comeback later on in future comics that don't feature Godzilla, and it's shrunken down into the size of a normal Bigfoot. But to have Red Ronin, it'd be cool to have Yetragar to go with it. It was a 3-way fight in the Grand Canyon, and it wouldn't be too hard for them to do Yetragar. Y-MSF has already done the Gargantuas, they've done Kongs, so a Yetragar would be right up their alley. Second up is the Beta Beast, who is a precursor to the mega monsters that aliens captured Godzilla and made him fight this thing in order to test his strength. And the Beta Beast is just this really weird looking alien monster, and we never see Godzilla fight something that looks really like this. So I think it would be a really cool figure to actually have. I imagine there might have to be some workaround with the tentacles, or else maybe they might be too fragile, but I don't know. Y-MSF handles Ibra's whiskers fine, so I'm thinking, yeah, they could probably handle the Beta Beast tentacles. Next up is Batragon, who is actually Godzilla's first opponent in the Marvel comics, and Batragon is pretty much just a giant fusion of a Komodo dragon and a bat. Weird looking monster, cool name, not very original in the long run. Godzilla's fought plenty of things kind of like it. But still, yeah, I would like to have it just for being the first Marvel Godzilla comic kaiju. Really, I think it's the first Godzilla comic kaiju that's original to the comics, but don't quote me on that. I don't know what was really going on in Japan at the time of the mangas in the 70s and 60s. The next one is Ronin, which is the organic helicopter alien monster that Godzilla has to also fight. And this is another alien thing, and there's not much else to say about it. It's a giant helicopter that's organic. The thing has this weird disc-shaped head, one eye, and it can spin its limbs to fly around. And Dope Pope, the same Dope Pope that's done work for like the MonsterVerse and everything, has actually done 3D models of Ronin for Toho Kingdom, and especially their Kaiju War Chronicles, and the model looks amazing. I do know Y-MSF has used Dope Pope sculpts before, so it might be possible to get a figure of Ronin just using the same Dope Pope sculpt, and I would be perfectly okay with that. And then the final Marvel Godzilla monster I want to see is actually the mutated Godzilla himself. The mutated Godzilla appears years after Marvel lost the rights to Godzilla, and they brought Dr. Demonicus back, who is also the only villain that was made for the Marvel Comics Godzilla series, and never came back again. So when Dr. Demonicus did come back for Iron Man, he reintroduced himself and unleashed a new monster in which he said is an even more mutated version of an old friend of his, or an old foe. And that's obviously then Godzilla. And this thing is, well, it's Godzilla, but even more mutated with copyright safe design, and they never actually name it. It's made some appearances after the fact of its return, but it's never done a starring role or anything like that. I was actually hoping we'd eventually see it fight the Japanese Godzilla, like the actual Godzilla, with Godzilla going back into the Marvel Universe for crossovers. Maybe that'll still happen in the future, but who knows. But still, yeah, I would love to see this mutation just get some sort of representation in figure form before it's completely forgotten about entirely. When it comes to Godzilla the series here, there's a lot more monsters to choose from on who I'd want Y-MSF to do figures for. And so instead of doing just 5 like I did with Marvel, I decided to do 10 for Godzilla the series. And I'm not going to include Cyber Godzilla because Cyber Godzilla has already been shown off as a prototype for Y-MSF, so chances are we'll be getting it within the next year or two. So besides Cyber Godzilla, the following 10 are who I want and why. And the first up is Crustaceous Rex, which is the first monster that Godzilla fights in the animated series. Kind of like Scylla from the Monsterverse, where it's a walking crab monster with tentacle features. Doesn't know if it's a crustacean or an octopus, squid thing, cephalopod. But it's a cool design, it's unique looking, and it's actually one of the most popular Godzilla series monsters. It was supposed to have a children's toy back in the 90s, never happened. So, seeing Y-MSF bring back C-Rex, I'd be excited. The second one is actually another early monster in the series, and that is El Gusano, and this is actually my favorite Godzilla series kaiju. I don't know why, I just like it. It reminds me so much of a graboid from Tremors. Giant mutant worm monster that's just bulky as all hell. Yeah, I love that thing. The next one would be Tessego, the giant scorpion that was made by the United States government to fight Godzilla and other mutations. Y-MSF does a stellar job with their insect monsters, like the Kamacuras figures, Kumanga, Ibara, even like Manda and their other like non-humanoid monsters. So I would love to see them do Tessego. I think they'd be able to do it great justice while capturing that scorpion look, the weird face, and the bluish and reddish colors. Come on. The next monster is King Cobra, which is the giant snake monster that also fights the next monster I'm including in this little list here, which also takes up 2 spots, and that is the Robo Yeti. The Robo Yeti has an organic look where it's in like a disguise of a giant Yeti. And then after Godzilla blasts it with his atomic fire, it reveals itself as, well, a Mechani Kong that's not Mechani Kong. This is Robo Yeti, and it's the closest thing we'll probably ever see to Godzilla versus Mechani Kong in an official capacity. So I'd love to see this thing get a figure also. Little fact is that this thing was also supposed to get a figure in the 90s also. That I don't know how this would have worked, but it would have been kind of cool to have. So I would just like to have the Robo Yeti on a shelf. Then we come to the Chameleon, which is kind of like the Space Godzilla to GTS's Godzilla. It is a flawed clone of Godzilla that can turn invisible, has a giant set of jaws in its chest, and its head is just this weird 3-pronged thing. Very unique monster, unique design, one of the best episodes of the series, and yeah, Chameleon definitely deserves a figure, along with Quetzalcoatl, which is, well, Q. The Rodan stand-in by any other name. Quetzalcoatl is just a giant bird monster who also, like C-Rex and the Robo Yeti, was supposed to have a toy in the 90s. Never happened, so hey, Y-MSF, come on, give us it. And speaking of flying monsters, the giant bat. I do wish the giant bat had a more unique name, but hey, it is what it is. The giant bat was featured in several Godzilla series episodes, starting with the Monster Wars. It's not so much a unique monster because we have seen a lot of other bat monsters at the time, including Bagora in the Godzilla Dark Horse comics. But the giant bat, with its blue colors and its more furry body, it does have a more unique look compared to other bat and pterosaur kaiju. From, again, Bagora to Rodan, he does stand out a bit. And that is also why I would love to see Y-MSF give him a shot. So I'm just going to throw the Crackler in here also. Once again, a very unique monster, predates Clover and has that same type of Cloverfield-ish build to it while walking on its limbs with smaller hind legs. And at last, but certainly not the least, is Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. Yes, Godzilla fights the infamous Loch Ness Monster in Godzilla the series, and it is a giant eel-like thing. Y-MSF has done several Manda figures in the past, and I have no doubt they could also knock a Nessie figure out of the ballpark also. So that is 10 GTS monsters that I am hoping we see put into figure form from Y-MSF, either through Y-MSF or Raymundo Toys or Zero Toys or whatever. I don't care if they gotta make some copyright free name, make slight adjustments to it like they did to Red Ronin. Either way, I want these monsters as figures. I love Godzilla the series. I've been wanting figures for these monsters forever, and now that Y-MSF has been doing them, I'm hoping we see these ones. And yeah, that's it, folks. So a lot of monsters here that could become figures from Y-MSF or Zero or Raymundo Toys, whichever label they decide to go with, and I would be here for all of them. Now, once again, go out, pick up these figures if you see them. I have no doubt, especially this one here, is going to be fetching a nice price in the distant future. And until next time, folks, peace out, and Minya, take it away.
Godzilla says you should like and subscribe.